well. There's lots of headlines that talk about the massive churn in CEOs. And I think you have some real data that your firm has put together. The average tenure of a board member is, call it 8 years. The average tenure of a CEO is about 4 years. So if you're a board member and you haven't seen CEO succession yet, it's coming to a theater near you pretty soon. But demystify what's really going on when you look at more macro data as opposed to headlines, but also talk about how do you make sure you're not one of those companies who thinks about CEO succession as an episodic event and more towards an evergreen process where at any point in time you can pull a trigger and have somebody who moves into that chair relatively quickly. Maybe not forever, but for gaps that pop up from time to time.
Yeah. We always advise all clients have emergency succession plans in place for CEO and C-suite. I mean, frankly, down the line, but particularly in the board's purview, CEO and C-suite, and they need to do the same thing on the board too. I've seen over the last year more emergency successions due to performance, health issues, ethics violations, a wide range of topics than I've seen in the prior 10. And they of course impact the board because they make decisions, but several of them have resulted in current or former board members having to drop into temporary executive roles. And for most of our retired members who happily serve on boards, they don't want an executive job again. They're retired for a reason. So they often serve to support the company, but it's not their first choice, and it's not the position any board wants to be in. So absolutely having an annual process and discussion around executive succession. Who would we put in the role tomorrow if we had to? And what does the pipeline look like 2, 3, 5 years from now? And what do we need to do to get those people ready so that they're capable and available to put in the seat when and if the time comes? So best-in-class process would include the board having a discussion as part of regular process around what's our strategy, where are we headed, what do we anticipate changing over the next 12 months to 5 years, what does the organization need or what will it need to support that strategy or strategic shift, and then what are the kind of experiences and skills that we're looking for. Is there a culture transformation we're trying to drive? Are there major transactions we need to engage in? Will we make a strategic pivot? Are we making a geographic expansion, et cetera? So therefore, what are the experiences they need? And do they have that in-house currently? And that should include a pretty thorough and regular assessment of internal talent to identify preparedness for the next role. But it should also include an external look, whether that's just purely a paper exercise or actually meeting and getting to know people to understand what the outside market looks like. Even for companies who are ready and promote internally, which is always preferable, usually preferable, it's still helpful to know what the outside market looks like so that you're doing kind of a responsible job for the sake of shareholders on selecting the best leader.
But let me ask you a question along those lines. Who owns it? CEO owns it? Chairman of the board, if he's not the CEO or the prior CEO? Is it the lead director? Is it the talent management committee? Who owns it? And is there a place where that ownership tends to be more successful from an outcome perspective?
Yeah. So I've seen it owned by the non-gov chair, by the compensation chair, by the chair of the board, by a special committee, and by the CEO. And it can work fine. I don't recommend it being owned by the CEO, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Across those other committees, I've seen it work fine. I don't love the idea of a special committee for a CEO succession because the implication is we're not thinking about it and it is a special one-time thing. But across non-gov, comp, executive committee, or chair ownership, as long as there is a robust process that the board agrees on and that the board has an opportunity to provide input into, any of those can be effective. Very often I see the process delegated to the CEO for one of a couple of reasons. One could be the board doesn't have experience with it. And you're right, in most board members' careers, they'll see some type of CEO transition. They may not have seen a well-orchestrated one, or they may not have experienced one yet, but at some point they probably will. And so the board may not feel confident leading the process themselves. They may also feel uncomfortable raising the topic with the CEO because they fear implying we want to replace you, which of course does not have to be the case at all. It's just proper good governance. So the temptation can be, hey, CEO, we don't want you to think we're stepping on your toes. You develop your people and tell us who you recommend. What's good about having the CEO and often the CHRO involved is they do know the people and they do have a direct impact on what assignments people are rotated into, the scope of their responsibilities. They see their performance, they see how they're leading the teams, etc. So they play a really important role. But I've seen too many times when the CEO owns the process often takes longer and often is not as thorough or comprehensive.
Great, thanks.